Hi, I'm Julianne de Lorenz, and today we're going to go through a presentation on a very special spectrophotometer, the OLIS RSM 1000 line. To get us started, I'm going to share screen and bring up the presentation on this most special line of equipment from the beginning. So the OLIS RSM 1000 is the only rapid scanning spectrophotometer based line of UV-Vis instruments available. And we have the very marvelous line 1000 scans per second is just the beginning, and you'll see why shortly. So why should you care? Why should you be watching this? You're pursuing stop flow or flash photolysis studies. You want the most definitive, correct, and defensible answers on chemistry, as well as kinetics. Recall that single wavelength measurements can only give you kinetics. Multiple wavelengths can give you chemistry, and we're huge enthusiasts of that. You want the most sensitive measurements possible. You want your sample to see only the wavelengths required. You want to use the least volume of sample. You want the fewest experiments with the least waste. And you want to rely on your instrument unfailingly. Your alternative, what if you don't choose the OLIS RSM 1000? You cannot have the same level of assurance about your sample. You will use more sample, you'll do more experiments. You run the risk of photolyzing light-sensitive samples. You will generate more waste, spend more money, and ultimately settle for a system without the expansive upgradability potential of the OLIS RSM 1000 line. You might know that UV-Vis spectroscopy has been used for nearly 100 years, but until 1992, there were no rapid scanning monochrometers. Well, there was the Herrick rapid scanning monochrometer, but this was a device that was useless in the ultraviolet region and suffered from very high noise performance. Its top speed was less than 200 scans per second. However, for over 10 years, we took that monochrometer and coupled it to stop flows and computerized them back in the 1980s through 91. The last investigator to take delivery of this hybrid system was Professor Jack Norton, then at Colorado State, now at Columbia University. His challenge to us at the time was, you must be able to do better than this. Again, for its time, it was very good. And here is a 1997 paper that came out of a group in New Zealand where they described the rapid scanning performance using a commercial stop flow, using the Herrick monochrometer together with the OLIS system. The North Star Horizon was a pre-PC, an absolutely fabulous wood boxed CP-M computer. You'll see these results that they show, rapid scanning spectra, 8 scans in a quarter of a second followed this original reaction. But after coming back from Colorado, what Dr. Desai designed was far superior. And by the next year, in 92, he was collecting this extraordinary illustrative data, which is obviously a very high resolution spectrum of chromium oxide, taken in 1 millisecond. 1 millisecond, that entire scan. So clearly you've got speed, resolution, sensitivity, and accuracy. And we'll see soon that it's useful as a producer of light as well as a detector of light. So the first RSM system with stop flow was delivered to Professor Bob Blake at Meharry Medical College. He was pretty darn happy. And in fact, wasted no time at all getting a very nice paper out. This was in 94. You can see down here, he referred to the OLIS RSM data acquisition system, achieving 1,000 scans per second. So this is the instrument. We show it here with the stop flow in front. This is the spectrophotometer itself, light source, rapid scanning monochrometer, sample compartment. It's perfect for stop flow. Here is the same instrument now without the stop flow in the picture. And just to note that if you choose to, and we'll go into this in detail, to not do 1,000 scans per second, The 1000 still applies, but now we're doing 1000 points per half a millisecond so that you can follow microsecond kinetics. So how do you do this? How do you do 1000 scans per second with the kind of performance that we just saw? Well, the instrument received a patent back in '92, and as the name suggests, it has a moving intermediate slit. So it's simply an aperture, an opening in space that moves across a spectrum that's produced, allowing you to rapidly vary monochromatic light to pass through. So again, looking at this drawing from the patent, we see the light source, the lamp, the entrance slit to the monochromator, mirror, grating, mirror, mirror, intermediate slit, mirror, grating, mirror, mirror, exit slit, typically then the detector. They're mirror images of each other. This is identical to this, and that will be a useful detail to recall in future. Here is the scan disk with slits sweeping across a 25 millimeter wide spectrum. And again, we'll see more of this in this graphics. Here we have the round metal disc. On a thin metal disc, this circular disc is motorized, operating at 62.5 hertz. 16 slits on this wheel, spinning at 62.5 hertz, yields the 1000 scans per second. This is a rarely used spoke wheel version where most of the light passes through except for a spoke. That gives you the felt gate effect. We intended this for fluorescence applications. Most of the time we're using this one. Here we see a 25 millimeter breadth of light passing from one monochromator half to the other. This is then one of the, this is the mirror that's shining the light through. If you don't need rapid scanning, then you can change to a normal fixed slit that is common in other spectrophotometers. And interestingly, not only does this allow you to do normal speed scanning, but it also opens up microsecond detection because, of course, everything, the electronics and the detection and the software and so forth are optimized for collecting a megabyte of data per second with the 1000 scans per second. That same technology can now be utilized for microsecond work. This was an early page that we used. Here we see our light coming in, mirror, grating, mirror, grating, no, so grating, mirror. Let's try this again. Light in, mirror, grating, mirror, mirror, intermediate slit, mirror, grating, mirror, mirror, exit slit out. So that's how the light travels through. And here it's very obvious that we have mirror images of each other. Interestingly, as we highlight here, subtractive double grating monochromators, which is what this monochromator happens to be. Not only is it a mirror image of each other, the two halves, but it also outputs a homogeneous blend of the wavelengths that we're passing through. So if you have a 1 nanometer bandwidth, then there's, that's blended into a homogeneous blend. If you have a 10 nanometer bandwidth, all of those wavelengths are combined for a homogeneous output beam. So this is obviously going to be very valuable, that allowing your sample to be uniformly illuminated, particularly if your sample happens to be heterogeneous or a solid, because all parts of the sample will now be assured of seeing the same color light. Every spectrophotometer that you've been used before is an additive. They don't have the homogeneous output beams. They're not mirror images. They do not have millisecond scan rates, obviously. And another attribute of a subtractive is wavelength dependent temporal resolution, which the subtractive monochromators don't. They have zero temporal dispersion, regardless of the wavelength. So Raman instruments, where a laser goes through, you want it to enter and exit, if you will, at the same moment, independent of the wavelengths. This is the case of the RSM. Clearly, it is not a diode array or a CCD type spectrophotometer. This is a true scanning monochromator using the highest sensitivity detectors available, which are photomultiplier tubes. CCDs and diode arrays are your alternatives. So this page is just a fun graphic that reminds you that a diode array, notice that it's an array of diodes. They're so insensitive, bloodshot eyes there, that one has to use very bright light right at the sample to get as much activity out of it as possible. And then to lose as few photons as possible, one typically sends your light through a very small single grating monochromator to the awaiting detectors. Completely different with a scanning spectrophotometer, where your lamp shines into a monochromator, in our case, a double monochromator, so that the sample is protected from all the heat and multiple wavelengths of the lamp and sees only the wavelengths that you intend for it to see. And then the photomultiplier tube, an exquisitely sensitive detector, can be millimeters from the sample so that no light is lost. This happens to be a page from our catalog. The RSM 1000 millisecond scanning with milliabsorbent sensitivity. It was developed for stop flow. Its patent name is a double grating monochromator with moving intermediate slit. And we have numerous products with the numeral 1000, as we'll see. A few testimonials. Jim Harmon never quite forgave us. He got the second one. He wanted the first one, but Bob Blake was physically closer to us. And so he got the first, and then Jim got the second. Andy Pachenko is one of those using the instrument for microsecond, millisecond, minutes time scale, even a very long multiple hour reaction. So indeed, the instrument is not only for millisecond performance, but can be used for experiments over all time ranges from microsecond to arbitrarily long. This is a marvelous gentleman from the University of Free State. Unbelievable software. He points out, of course, a very strong strength of this instrument, and he likes the instrument very much. And then Danny has had one of our instruments for almost 20 years now, and like most of our clients, has zero problems. This is a picture showing the RSM 1000, which is with its usual light source and its usual sample compartment, as we saw in previous photographs. But now there's a second lamp and a second monochromator. And this hardware has been added to allow you to do millisecond emission scanning, as well as millisecond absorbent scanning. So here, we are shining light, excitation light, onto the sample, and then we're taking advantage of the instrument being mirror image and sending the light backwards, if you will, through the RSM to a detector. The detector can either be here where this lamp is, or it can be under this trap door for a mid-plane PMT. Here is a configuration of the instrument with, again, two lamps. Big 450 watt going into a single grating monochromator. Now the sample compartment in this particular system, which happens to be at the University of Georgia, is a high pressure bomb. And then the light is being used through the RSM. This is a reference channel that was added for the fluorescence use. On our website, you'll find a great deal of additional information. This is an opening page about the uniqueness section. We again go through it being the type of monochromator, the millisecond scanning, the extreme sensitivity, and so forth. Here happens to be one experiment, 2 seconds of data collection time. These were all the spectra that were collected. That we then also show in 2D. You have the ability to obviously toggle between those displays. This graphic then shows you the result of the mathematics that took these raw data and said, okay, what are they and what are the rates? We applied a very simple one rate case of colored A goes to colored B, and we received these results with this numeric information. And in fact, I've got an asterisk up here to point out that our mathematics were actually described in Methods in Enzymology back in 2004. We had 3 chapters discussing this. A second data set, again, one experiment, in this case, 4 seconds collection time, 2-dimensional. These are 10 or so scans out of the whole. This is the fitted result. This time colored A goes to colored B, goes to colored C. You have things changing with a spectral intermediate. This is a publication that came out in 2019 showing some lovely spectra and different rates. We've jumped now to a really fun experiment, which was done back in the early 90s as well. Dr. Desai took a firefly out of his front yard and popped it into the sample compartment to utilize it as an emission spectrometer to see what would happen. And you might try this on your own. It won't work on your instrument. But one firefly, 1 second, and she flashed 3 times. 1, 2, 3 over the course of the second. We then fitted those data to get the emission spectrum, 1 animal, 1 second of data collection time in the correct emission spectrum of the firefly. And here we see the kinetics during that 1 second time. Now, shifting gears slightly towards what the instrument can be used for in addition to stop flow. So obviously you've got the main instrument, an accessory stop flow can be added to it. An accessory that we call the clarity could also be added to it, which would allow you to work not only in clear solutions, as all UV vis spectroscopy has been done prior, but in a native environment of the sample. Bob Blake was the first one to purchase one of these as well. He, of course, immediately did some great work and published. You can see here we do have a 2-lamp system. And this is the clarity chamber. This is the master control box that controls the operation of the instrument, the computer system, power supply for the lamp. This was one of his papers where he references using 2 × 10⁹ cells, whole living cells. This is another case where we were using whole cells. In this case, they were human red blood cells donated by a faculty member, longtime friend, who showed up with these. And according to this small print here, we used 20 microliters of human red blood cells in order to collect those results. This is some work that we did. This is yeast. Whole living yeast, and we're following the electron transport chain, seeing different cytochromes along the way. This is a graphic which pulled out the kinetics at these 3 particular wavelengths to see, but obviously we have the full spectral picture of what was happening because we have rapid scanning and because we have the clarity enhancement. So with such a system, what could you ask or answer potentially for the very first time? Easily, quickly, with minimal waste. As we like to point out, research is hard enough without unprofitable effort and squandered resources. The right instrument does make the difference between common work and wasteful activities, or brilliant and ultimately economical work. So we invite you to aspire to do brilliant breakthroughs with us to achieve best results with least waste, being exciting and relevant and successful. So I look forward to hearing from you at some point about this. I would be delighted to take your call, to get an email from you, to go through another presentation with you at the right time. Again, my name is Julie Lorenz. You can reach me at 706-353-6547. I'm Julie at olisweb.com. Thank you so much for your time, and please be back in touch. Okay, bye-bye.